Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Get Into It with Gila. I'm Gila Glassberg, registered dietitian and certified intuitive eating counselor. And today I have Bari Mitzmann. Hi, Bari.
Hi, Gila. Thank you so much for having me and squeezing me in on a chaotic day.
Thank you so much for making this work. I know we were just talking before we started recording that you have a lot on your plate, and I really appreciate you making the time to come onto my podcast. I really appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate your patience.
Oh, sure. So tell the listeners a little bit about yourself. Where do you live? What do you do?
All right. So I am a Brooklyn native who's been living in Nevada for 6 years. We just passed our 6 year anniversary living here.
No.
So both of my children are Nevada born and bred. We do not live on the strip. We do not live near the strip. We live in a suburb called Henderson. What I do. So
So
I
wait
am,
one second. Hold on.
yeah,
Actually, if you don't mind, since we're doing this off the cuff, anyways, first of all, I just want to say my best friend lives next door to you, Karen Rubin.
yeah. Next door neighbors.
Yeah, really funny. And okay, why Henderson? Like Henderson, right?
Yeah.
Why you're from Brooklyn, like how'd you end up there? And then you could tell us what you do.
So I'm from Flatbush. My accent from New York really, once I go to New York, it comes back and then I like have to adjust for a few weeks. But
Yeah,
since I've
you
been living
don't
here for
sound
a
like you're from New
while,
York. You don't sound like that.
I adjust to accents. If I'm hanging out with a British person for long enough, my intonation changes. And I once spent a summer down south and I had like sinus infection and they're like, honey, where's your insurance from? I'm like, New York. They're like, is that where you're from? I'm like, yes, ma'am. And they're just like, okay. Like it's not a mimicking, it's not a mocking, it's just the accent, like it kind of just adapts with me, which is why I'm good at doing impressions and
Yeah,
things
yeah.
like that. We really just wanted out of New York for a number of reasons.
We meaning you
um
and your husband.
yeah, my husband and I spoke about it even before we got married. While we were dating, I was just like, I don't know, I don't really see myself raising a family here. I feel like I have to keep up a lot and like everything's so fast paced that like my anxiety skyrockets. I have generalized anxiety disorder. So like, you also need to like try and control your environment as much as possible with that. So
But
my husband didn't
when you
want
were growing
snow.
up there, you didn't
Yeah.
like when you were growing up there as a kid, you didn't like living there. Like you thought in your head, like when I get married, I'm going to move out of New York, or it was more like,
No,
no,
not at all. Not at all. I'm just like, I'm going to be here for the rest of my life or like maybe move to Manhattan type thing. Once I started volunteering for NCSY while I was in college, um, I was flying out to the West Coast a lot, actually. I never flew out to Vegas, um, but I did work for NCSY in the West Coast for a couple of years. But while I was volunteering, I think my last Shabbaton before I graduated, so I actually flew back at the end, like early from spring regional to go and like go to my graduation because like the dean like asked me if I would go. He's like, I want to give you an award or something. I'm like, I have a Shabbaton. He's like, it's a money award. I'm like, I'm on my way, Dean. So I planned my trip accordingly, but I was in the same room as my boss, who is the director of Vegas NCSY. I actually was volunteering in Portland, so at least once a month I was flying out to Portland, Oregon. I went to Seattle, I went to LA, I went to Vancouver, and I was just like, wow, these kids are really nice. Like, oh my God, like you say hi to the mailman here. So like every time I'd go, I'd be like, good morning, mailman. And everyone's like, what's wrong with you? I'm like, we don't get to do that in New York. Everyone just grunts at each other. It doesn't even make eye
yeah,
contact. I'm like,
yeah.
I like this idea of saying hi to my mailman. Truth is, like, I would probably, if we moved back, like I would be the one to do that. But I'm also just like, Ma, like, why aren't people saying that my kid's so cute? Everyone says that in Trader Joe's. And she's like, people might be like scared to like feel like threatened, like you're gonna like do something in that. I'm like, that's very silly and that's a very sad way to live. But my husband really didn't want snow. That was like his main thing. And I'm like, okay, if you want to live somewhere warm, I can't have somewhere humid, which left very few places in the country. Um,
That's so interesting. So it's based
yeah,
on like a lot of like factors having to do with like raising your kids and also like the weather.
yeah. And we were looking, we heard about a month, 2 months into us being married, someone told us there were two up and coming communities, one in Texas, one in Vegas, and we checked out Vegas first. Summerlin's also a really great community here, but Henderson's just where we ended up, and we love it.
So you moved there right after you got married? Like you've been there since you got married?
We moved right after I took my last exam for my graduate degree. I actually have a master's in special education. I was a teacher. And after I moved here, even I was doing some substitute teaching and some tutoring for the state. Um, and then, I got sick, like my Lyme disease kind of returned with a vengeance, and between having kids and taking a toll on my body with all these active infections, I had to step down for most of my life. I stopped doing outreach. I was doing college outreach and high school outreach, and I stopped tutoring. So I was pretty much left with no work and no income and things like that. And I kind of just took like the small social media that I was using. It was like kind of like a creative outlet to deal with everything that's going on. It still is a creative outlet for me, but it has turned more into a business. Social media, I guess I didn't say, anything about what I do. So at this point,
so what do you do?
I when people ask me, I usually say I do things, but I'll elaborate a bit. I am a social media influencer on Instagram, though I just resolved to do some ridiculousness on TikTok just for the sake of my own weird sense of humor. I have my own podcast that I don't do as consistently as anyone who I've been interviewed by over the past year. I'm very impressed by the consistency of you, of everyone who's able to do this. My podcast is a Woman of Valor podcast where we, interview different Jewish women talking about overcoming adversity, normalizing struggle, shedding light on different topics that are important and pertain to the modern Jewish woman. I have my own social media consulting business where I consult one-on-one with businesses about their overall strategy, and I do run a couple of accounts. And taking that a step further, I have my own course called IBA, which is the IG Business Academy, where I teach people who work for companies or organizations, or people who own businesses, or people who want to run social media as a form of income, teaching them starting from the very, very basics of how to use Instagram, all the way up to negotiating contracts with influencers and growing your following and Instagram strategy and planning and content calendars and ways of vetting different people you're working with, and even bonus content. I just finished recording today with Melinda Strauss, who's giving a class on TikTok and how to use what you're already doing for Instagram and then use it for TikTok. So definitely keeping myself busy. I also have a nonprofit called Hakol Beseder, where we aim to provide publications about the holidays for women who don't necessarily connect in the traditional way or are feeling like nervous or disconnected to the holidays, as a form of connection and inspiration, while also validating and empathizing with the struggle.
Wow, it's a lot of things. Lots of things. You said we have an hour and 20 minutes, right?
Yes. Gotta pick up my kid after this. One kid. Okay. Then I need to entertain her and then go pick up another kid. So we're doing great.
Okay, great. Because we could go like a lot of places. So, well, you didn't say anything. You spoke about the Lyme disease, but you didn't really tell us the story. But I know you've been interviewed on other podcasts, so we don't have to go there.
I also have an episode on my podcast called When Life Gives You Lyme, where I kind of just start at the beginning until like almost the end. I don't know when exactly I recorded it. But
that's a really cute title. Very cute title.
Thank you. In some, it was a 6-year journey, which sucked. But here I am.
Well, and then maybe I'll just link it. Maybe I'll just wait. You don't still have it, or you do still have it?
Everything, thank God, right now is at bay. There's no active infections. Thank God. Unfortunately, I just lost the practitioner, my doctor, who actually was the messenger who, brought me to my healing, which has been hard, but I am grateful that, he got me to this place.
Wow, that's amazing. So I'm going to link that episode in my show notes, but if you could you tell the abridged version of the story, and then I'll pull it apart from my angle of like intuitive eating, health at every size. Don't make comments about people's bodies, basically.
Yes. So essentially, while I got engaged to my husband in 2015, and I was working full-time, graduate school full-time, volunteering for some nonprofits. And, I was pretty much eating, stuff that really wasn't quite intuitive, as you would say, but was just easy and whatever. And suddenly I just started dropping weight out of nowhere. People are like, are you okay? what are you doing? I'm so jealous. Like, oh, is it just like everyone when they're engaged loses weight? You're just nervous. I'm like, I'm not nervous about anything. Like, I know I'm supposed to marry this dude. Like, I'm eating like, you know, chicken fingers and pizza, not together, obviously, but like every single day. Like, there's no rhyme or reason to what's happening right now.
You
I
felt
started getting
fine? Did you feel fine?
first I was feeling fine, and the weight I started like shedding weight. But then I started feeling like a little more weak. I stopped going to the gym as often. I was going to the gym just for like my own like sanity and like movement. That's what I say to myself, but quite frankly, I had too much information. I'll tell you right now, as someone who's, you know, you're an intuitive eating specialist, I am the food police.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I should have a badge. When they speak about the food police in the books, that is me. I am said food police. So I just knew that, like, you know, I should be eating the right things, and I was, but then I would go and like before that I would just go and like eat like small, like really, really healthy meals that like my coworkers were impressed with, and then I'd go home and eat everything that was in my parents' fridge.
You're like restricting and
Because
binging.
I was starving by the time I
Mm-hmm.
got home. I'm
Right.
like, that like salad with like a tiny piece of grilled chicken was just not doing it for me. I'm gonna eat all of the shop's leftovers that are in my fridge at 4 o'clock, and then not have dinner because I'm too full, and like just repeat the cycle.
You were
But
restricting
yeah,
on purpose. You were at first you were restricting on purpose to try to
I
lose
was
weight.
I was doing it for quote unquote health reasons.
Mm-hmm.
I was trying my best. Like, I have this preoccupation with, I used to be like incredibly interested in reading food labels, like almost to the point of like memorization. Like, you would be able to like test me. Like, I know how many grams of fat and calories are in mayonnaise and what's in it and in what order, because that was just what I would study. Not in like an obsession way. I was just like, okay, that was there. It was like some weird thing I had as a kid, but like I knew all about Weight Watchers and the South Beach diet and, you know, Atkins and all these things. So I kind of was just like, okay, I'm aware of all these things. And I wasn't as small as I was at the height of my life, or as small as I am now, even, you know, when I was in high school, post sem, you know, whatever, I really started losing weight, um, you know, once I got sick. But I
Right.
didn't know I was sick. So in
Important for people
short,
to know, by the way, just
yeah,
that like I worked in nursing homes for 5 years as a clinical dietitian, and like part of my job was to we keep really close tabs on people's weight, because when people randomly start to lose weight, it's a symptom of usually a symptom of something else. So like
right.
we in our culture is like, oh, weight loss is amazing. Like I'll get Lyme disease and I'll have cancer, God forbid, and I'll get COVID because like at least I get to lose weight. Like that's so disordered, but like just so people know that that's really a
Do you know
symptom
how
of
many
illness.
comments like that I got? Well, at least you look good.
Right.
Or maybe I should get Lyme disease. Lucky. You know, even like emotionally, it's like, so you have this person helping you with this, that person helping you. What do I have to do to get something like that?
It's terrible.
And I was like, I'm sick.
Right.
And, you know, I also had someone tell me at a wedding, like, Barry, like, you're married now. It's okay. You could stop losing weight now, like in
It's so
front of
terrible.
people. And I was like
Right.
mortified. And like, I just
Right.
had my husband drive me home after the wedding. Like, it took everything out of me to get there and drive an hour and a half from Muncie to Williamsburg.
Right.
And
Right.
like, I couldn't even make it through the chuppah. And I just got back in the car and had him drive me home. I'm like, I can't do this. Um, so yeah, we never found a tick bite. I started losing weight. I started getting fatigued. I already knew before we got married, I'm like, don't get a hotel, don't plan a trip, don't do anything. Like, let's go back to our apartment because I know I'm going to be exhausted. And I just remember like them
Right.
pulling me away. Like, at Jewish weddings, there's often the custom of like doing 2 rounds of dancing. So they were going to pull me away to the second round of dancing. And I turned to my new husband. I'm like, please don't make me go back out there.
Right.
Please don't. And they were like pulling me. And he was like, I'm so sorry. Like, I don't know what to do. These like women are pulling you. So I put on a really good show. That's what I do. I have a pretty nice background in acting. Um, and yeah, and then like I remember getting in the limo, like smiling, waving to everyone goodbye, and then like the door closed and I toppled over to the side, and I was just like, just just take me home. Like,
And you
I
didn't
want
know
to go
you were
home.
sick yet. You didn't know that you were sick yet.
I wasn't no, I was like, something's up, but we don't know
Right.
what. So I went, and thankfully we were living in Rockland County, which is infamous for the amount of ticks that they you know harbor. So when I went to the doctor, like, we're gonna tell everyone's like, oh, maybe you're pregnant, maybe you're anemic, and I'm like, can everybody just get out of my body? And like, I'm gonna go to the doctor. And I just remember that Yom Kippur, like I was told like just to not like to just eat like small portions of things, and I was skipping a couple times, and then they took my blood pressure at one point in the afternoon, and they were just like, how are you still conscious? You should
Wow.
not be conscious with the blood pressure you currently have.
So scary. And you didn't know what you had at the time.
No. So right after the holiday of Sukkot, we got my blood test back, and they were like, you have Lyme disease. I'm like, what's Lyme? That's a fruit. Like, I don't know what Lyme disease. I'm like, of course, the one thing I don't know what it is what I have. So long, arduous journey, starting with like a bunch of, antibiotics, probiotics, supplements, antifungals. Like I had I call it my Bubby box. I have a huge box of pills. I would be taking like 20 pills twice a day. For a
Crazy.
few months, I took off work. I was teaching in a school in New Jersey. I had to take off work for about 6 weeks. And the moment I came back, the person who worked in the office, I don't blame her. It was like a word vomit. I walk in and she goes, "Oh my God, you're so skinny."
Mm-hmm.
And I go, "I'm doing great. How are you?"
What did you do for those 6 weeks, by the way? Like,
I
as
was
somebody
super
who was
depressed and I was
like
crying
in bed.
a lot. There was a lot of depression. There was a lot of anxiety. There was a lot of loneliness. But also, my husband was working from home, and it's not like we lived, where we live now. We lived in an apartment the size of my current kitchen.
Mm-hmm.
Like we were living in a basement of somebody else's house. It was like 4 feet to get from, like, I always joke, I'm like, the walk from our bed to our bathroom is longer, like, than, like, it was so short. I'm like, and I couldn't even walk it. I used to have times where like my husband needed to pick me up and carry me to the bathroom. I felt so incredibly helpless. I couldn't eat.
Oh yeah.
I could not eat. um I remember, like, after that, like after those 6 weeks, I was with a friend. We went to like a bagel store, and I was able to eat like half a bagel, and I was so proud of myself. Then I was just staring at that other half, and she's like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "Why can't I eat you?" Yelling at the bagel in the bagel store, like, and like,
Because you
I
just didn't have
remember
the energy.
I had no interest either. Like, I was like withering away. I was so weak. I felt so frail. I like fit into like the preteen clothes in Jewish stores. So that should tell you how small I was.
Right.
And I remember I threw a hissy fit in one of the stores because I was trying on a pencil skirt, and I was like, I'm going to take a 4. And they were like, "Barry, you're not a 4. It's like falling off you." She's like, "You need a 0." I'm like, "I will never be a size 0. I am not a size 0. My body is not made to be a size 0." It was screaming. And this is not something you usually hear in a clothing store. You
Right.
usually hear like,
Right.
"I will not be a size X." Like,
Right.
I'm like, "No, I will not be this small. I refuse." And then I bought the larger skirt that I never ended up wearing. It no longer would fit me, because thank God I'm at like a healthier place right now, and my body is, likely where it should be. Um, but there was a lot of focus on my weight, despite like the fact that I could barely eat. There was no concept of eating intuitively. It was like, can I even get anything into my body at this point?
Right. Of course, when
Um,
you're sick, it's not like
yeah.
then yeah.
And then I was still small, like, while thank God I was still able to give my children the nutrients they needed. But like, say with like my son, I have 2 kids that are 18 months apart, which is fun. Now they're 5 and 3.5. And I remember when my son was pregnant with my son, I was really sick. I was sick throughout the whole pregnancy, but I just remember him like testing different things, and he's like, your body's in ketosis, like your body's like eating itself so that it can like supply stuff for your baby. I'm like, well, that's very encouraging. Thank you, doctor.
That had to do with your illness or no?
It had to do with the pregnancy, and it had to do with my illness. I had to be extremely careful while I was pregnant with my son, with what I ate, taking different supplements and things like that, because there is research that points toward the fact that you can pass along Lyme disease, um, you know, in like in utero, like you can pass on the
Well,
infections and things like that. Thank God we tested, and that wasn't the case, but I had to be extremely careful. So my relationship with food's been a little tough, which was hard because like by nature I'm a big foodie, but I don't know if that was because of my preoccupation with food when I was not giving my body the food that it needed,
right.
or
That
because I
that is
ignored it.
often what right. So it's funny because I tell this to clients a lot. Like I realized that, I mean, I happen to be a foodie. That's like why I became a dietitian, but I also probably became a dietitian and became a foodie because of all the years of restricting. Like when you're
Right.
restricted, you know, like those people that are like love to cook for you and they like love to smell the food and they're like, here, eat, and you notice like they're not eating. It's like
Yeah.
so disordered. Like they're
Yeah.
just like vicariously trying to eat through you. So yeah,
Yeah.
that could be why.
No, but I definitely have a history of restriction, and that's also tied into my anxiety disorder, where
Mm-hmm.
you feel like everything's out of control, and the only thing you can control, which you shouldn't, but you irrationally think you can control is what you're eating, and like
Right.
for some people that can go over to the extent of like this like euphoric feeling of restriction
Right.
and
For
things
sure.
like that.
Yeah.
Um, but I definitely had to like relearn how to eat, and also like kind of figure out once I learned how to eat and how to eat consistently. And that started, with like drinking Ensures if I couldn't get anything down. This
Mm-hmm.
stuff's nasty. You can only drink it when it's ice cold. It's
Yeah.
got to be ice cold to be able to chug that stuff. But first starting like to
Mm.
like tell your body, you need food.
Right.
And then from there, it's like, okay, well, what am I in the mood of? And I keep options around, like
Mm.
what am I in the mood of right now? What's my body like asking for? Or, am I still hungry? Do I want more? Am I full? Stop inhaling food and like chew. It's one of my hardest things is chewing.
Why do you think that is?
I think it's a sensory thing. I'm a very sensory person.
Mm-hmm.
I also realized that like I was just telling my husband, I'm like, I'm pretty sure I'm like sound sensitive. Like I already told myself, like I just got a pair of like earphones. I was like, I'm gonna take this to the next like bar mitzvah we're invited to because it's just so loud I can't function and I have to leave.
Mm-hmm.
But I do have some sensory stuff. So I think that like maybe the sensation of a full mouth
Mm-hmm.
is something that whatever. And like maybe I also kept my body like not fed until the point that I was like very hungry, that it was like, okay, let's
Shovel it
just
in.
shovel this down,
Yeah.
like so that my body can like understand, like, okay, I'm taking care of you. Like, let's get it to realize it faster. Like my husband saw it like from date 3, which was the date where I was like, dude, like you don't eat enough. Like, let me take you to this new burger joint. And like I stuffed myself really fast. And like the rest of the date, he's like talking and I'm like laying to the side on my chair and just going like, he's like, are you okay? I'm like, hey, I ate too quickly. He's like, yeah,
Yeah.
no, duh. I'm like,
Right.
why are you eating so slow? He's like, why are you eating so fast? so
Yeah.
so we're definitely, relearning some habits here.
Yeah, it sounds like you had a complicated relationship with food pre-Lyme and then during Lyme it just like totally enhanced that complication. But like I guess I want to pivot the conversation a little bit to other topics, but just
Yeah.
I've heard I mean I'm gonna link the episode because I want people to hear your full story, but like let's say let's say this was you like pre-Lyme and you would see a friend that like drastically lost weight. Do you think you would have made comments? And also like what do you want people to know about that? Like it is sometimes when you do see somebody who loses weight and it's so drastic and dramatic, it's hard not to say something. But now being on the other side of it and knowing like how painful it is, like
Right.
and how like a boundary violation is like what's like one or two messages you could tell people?
Right. So, I mean, for myself, I didn't really notice my body much until I got sick. I started becoming hyper aware and insecure about it. Like, I still haven't gotten like back to where I was before I got sick. Like, size wise, I don't really weigh myself because that would likely become an obsession of like numbers and things, which it has in the past, probably because of the anxiety and stuff. Um, but I found myself like looking at my body. I happened to have gotten a few months, our first year of marriage was fantastic. A few months in, I needed to get emergency surgery on my small intestine.
Oh yeah,
Needed
yeah, yeah.
piece of it needed to get cut out. We're married for like under 6 months. My husband, my new husband, has to like, I say new, but like, thank God, my only, but like newlyweds, he's rolling me into the OR,
Mm.
um, and I was told I couldn't eat for 3 days because once you operate on your intestines, like it takes a few days for them to like go back. And the first thing I
Mm-hmm.
did when I got home from the hospital is I went to look in the mirror and turned sideways to see what I looked like. And I do believe that that was because of how much focus was put on my body, that it brought the attention of like, wait, I'm supposed to be paying attention to my body. Apparently that's what we're supposed to be doing, because I wasn't doing that in the past.
Which is pretty amazing that you didn't have like an obsession with the way that you look before that, because like, I
Yeah,
mean, for a lot of teens, that's like a huge problem, you know?
it was more about like the food, because I thought it was like a study type thing. Like I loved physics. I loved the idea of nutrition. Stuff fascinated me. So I was just like, oh, what's best for my body? What's whatever. But it really wasn't like, and like the theory of dieting, but it wasn't for the purpose of a smaller body. Like I didn't really look at it too much. I think I was just more preoccupied with like my PCOS symptoms of like, excess hair and stuff like that. That was kind of my obsession. But like size and shape and all that jazz, like I couldn't care less back in the day. And like I've gotten to a point where like if someone I'm close to happens to lose a significant amount of weight, and someone else mentions it, or if I feel close to them, I go, I'm like, I've noticed that lost weight. Was that intentional? Only someone I'm close to. And if the answer is yes, I'm like, how do you feel? Like,
And not
do
in
you
front of other
feel
people.
good? Are you feel? Yeah, no, for sure
Right.
not. But it's just like, how are you feeling? Do you feel better? Because there are some times like all of a sudden, like, how do you feel? Like terrible. Like,
Right.
okay, but why?
Right.
Like, what's going on? And like, I've like learned also to be more empathetic about, people struggling with weight gain when they're in a smaller body. Because I've had friends, and once I was like, oh, well, you know what? Like, it's not healthy, and you're small and you're this and you're that. And I learned, like, you know what? Like, that's not empathy at all. I'm like, that must be so hard. You know what? Like, that's hard. Like, it's hard to like try something on in your closet and have an outfit at any size if it's something you
It
like,
is hard. Yeah, it's very hard.
So I've also learned that also for myself, because there are things that I don't fit into anymore. And I asked on social media, some people got like a little jarred when I asked them, like, because someone asked me a question and I assumed that it was because they noticed that I gained some weight. They're like, did you stop working out? And I was like, is that because you don't see me storying about it, or is it because you noticed that I gained weight? And then I said, like, did you notice? I just asked, and someone was like, I don't like where you're going with this. I'm like, hi, person that doesn't know me, like, let me say my piece. And then I went on to saying, with the obsession that people have, and a real epidemic on social media is that there are people who are looked up to or are viewed as role models who are sharing some really unhealthy food behaviors. And if they say, what they're eating in a day, that's less than like what a toddler should be eating, or like taking on these restrictions just because they can, or they think they should be, or oh, that's how you, and they're cool and they're small and they don't eat, so I'm going to do the same thing.
So you were trying to like really
I was like,
shed
listen,
light on
like,
that.
yeah, I'm like, you have to realize that it's harmful. And I also realize that there are a lot of people on here who are now, educating about intuitive eating, health at every size, all that jazz. And I think that it's made a difference, because some people were like, yeah, I noticed, but like, it's not my business and I would never ask you. And like, or
I mean, I
like, you
don't think
just
it's
look
anyone's.
happier and you look
Yeah.
healthier.
Right.
But that's not the culture that we lived in, 5-10 years ago. So I was like, I wanted to see, because I wanted to see how far we've come on
Right.
here. And I'm very pleased with the results. I
Yeah. It
said it
must
much
be
more
hard.
eloquently, but it was like, it was good.
Right. It must be hard. I wasn't even planning on saying this, but it just must be hard to be like that person on Instagram that people like, because you are an influencer, like people look up to you and like you have a responsibility, and like I'm sure people say things that like you're not expecting or like aren't so nice. And like I know if it was me, I'd be like, oh gosh, this is so hard. Like, is that something that like you struggle with, or most people are nice and
I
like,
had to deal with it. I had to deal with it myself, because the way I was reacting was pretty strong and pretty emotional. So there was obviously some underlying trauma and like struggle there. So I had to work through it, and now when someone says something, as we now say in our house, goofy, I just go like, okay, I said something goofy. It's not my problem.
and you
Or
just like
like
ignore it, or it doesn't.
or I'm just like, or sometimes I'll stand up for myself and just be like, that was a ridiculous thing to say, or ouch, that was hurtful.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then some people just can't be reasoned with, and that's okay. And I say,
Right.
like the last time I had something with someone, I'm like, I'm sorry. Like, you know what? It seems like this is really affecting you. Like, I'm sure you have more things, important things to deal with, so I'm going to make it easier for you, and I'm going to block you so that you don't have to like struggle with like looking at my things and like having it bother you so much. I don't want you to be this distressed. I'm sure you have more important things in your life to do. And I meant it genuinely. So I did. I'm like, you
Right.
know what? Like this person, what I'm doing is triggering to them for some reason. And like, okay, so like, let me take that stumbling block away from you.
Right. You have to have
And
like thick skin and be like assertive, I guess, and just have boundaries. If you're like so many people are watching your stories and like know about some aspects of your life, they assume they probably know you. And like,
yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
it does feel like it. I will say, as a consumer of like watching people on social media, like you do kind of feel like you know them, but like you have to remember like you don't know them and you're not good friends just because you watch them on Instagram, you know?
Right. But I'm also in the unique position of I'm not doing, the regular mainstream, like solely, promoting items. I do that because that's
Right,
a way to help make a living.
right,
But I do a lot of awareness for mental health, for chronic
right,
illness,
right.
for, religious struggle and questioning and things like that to
Yeah,
create space for that. So that I think there's even further more of an assumption. But there is a large chunk of my life and things that go on behind the scenes that I haven't shared. For like
right,
2 years, we've been dealing with the fact that my father-in-law has early onset Alzheimer's. And
right.
I only shared it, a couple of months ago for the first time.
Mm,
People who are not in my close circles didn't know that he lived with us or that.
right,
And we had him in a different location here, but like took care of everything for him. And then we had to move him back to a facility in New York and this and that. Like
right,
people didn't know, but
right,
then there's plenty more that people don't know
right. Of
that I
course.
that I don't plan on sharing for many different reasons. But listen, I don't mind. I don't live in a place where I'm often, bombarded or recognized. It happens a few times when I go to like, the restaurants here. But that's also the beauty of being out of everything. I don't know if I'd share as much if I lived in the tri-state.
Right. I hear that. Another thing I just wanted to say is that it's interesting that people commenting a lot on your body made you have more of a emphasis on looking at yourself in the mirror and like your body, and that's like important for like people to know about themselves, about their kids, about making comments about people's bodies, because like we do live in a world that is obsessed with like how people look and how people present, and like like in the intuitive eating world we talk about like when you see someone, you don't have to say like, wow, you look so skinny, or like, did you lose weight? Like you don't even have to make any comments about the way they look. You could say like,
Right.
I love your glasses. I love hanging out with you. I missed you, like just because when we do emphasize the way people look, that's just what we all kind of have an emphasis on. So like,
Or even just how are you feeling? I
right,
would have loved that.
right,
Would have loved that. How are you feeling?
right,
But then even after when I was functioning a little better, I was still in a very small frame. And I'd get things like, well, you can eat that. I can't, but like you can. And it's like, oh, there's some more left on the table. Barry, you finish it. You're the only one at this table that can afford to. And I'm like, but
right,
I'm full. Like, don't try to stuff me. Don't tell me what I should be eating. Like,
right,
I'm full. Like,
right,
also
right.
just don't comment on what I'm eating or what I want to eat or things like that.
Like people
It's
feel like
yeah.
it's public property. Like if somebody's body changes, like everyone could say whatever they want.
Yeah. Yeah. I have a friend who told me she was over this Shabbos and someone was like, again? Like, and like grabbed her stomach. She's like, nope, that's just the leftovers. Because she has a baby that's, a few months old.
Just
Just
don't make
leftovers.
comments about people's bodies ever.
Also, like, get off of me.
Yeah. Yeah. I just have to take a minute to absorb that. Like it's just, I don't know. It's terrible. Okay, so another thing I wanted to ask you, I've been really dying to ask you about this, is that I watched your live on Instagram with the reps. So Jacob Rupp is a business coach, right? Him and his wife,
Yes.
Julie.
Yes, Jacob and Julie.
I think it was a night that I couldn't sleep. I have like major insomnia, and I was sitting on the couch. It was probably 2 in the morning, and I was watching. I'm like, I can't. The whole thing I couldn't believe. I'll tell you why. First of all, I love that you were like so honest about your struggle with money, because you were literally being coached as if like it was you and just them, but like anyone could watch it, like
Yeah.
um and I heard Jacob Rupp on the podcast with Tippy Gross. So I knew like a little bit about what he did, and but you were so, first of all, you were so like open about your relationship with money. So I want to hear about that. And also um I just figured like influencers like are rich, like they just make a lot of money, like I guess that's how it presents on Instagram. So I
Yeah.
wanted you to like, first of all, why did you decide to share like your relationship with money on Instagram?
Um, well, actually, um, Rabbi Rupp and I go way back. he was the reason why I have the Woman of Valor podcast. We both worked for NCSY at the same time. And when I was leaving because of my illness, I was like, I'm leaving. Like, I'm not sure what I'm going to do with my time. He's like, start a podcast. I'm like, what's a podcast? So he actually helped set me up with everything that
Oh,
I
so
needed.
interesting.
So I know the reps, for a few years now. And
He felt it was a good idea to share your voice or share like what's going on with
I
you
think
or
so. I think it was also important for people to see, like, I always share like when something's an affiliate code for me and say like this is a percentage, or like I have restaurants here that I have codes with, and I go like, let's say I go to Cafe Express, I have code Bari that'll give you 10% off, for example. And at the end of every month, I reach out to the owner. I go, hey Ron, like how much do I have? And then I have calculations, and I go and I'll take a picture and be like, this coffee's on you. Like, thanks for everyone who like did this, or like dinner tonight is brought by you guys because you guys were the ones who brought us dinner. We don't live in a place where it's as easy to say like get takeout and do all those things. Like if we want takeout, we need to be willing to drive an hour.
Wow.
Total. Because you have to drive 30 minutes there or even 25. What about the wait?
Yeah.
Like nobody delivers here.
Right.
There are random times that one restaurant might deliver. One.
I
And
understand.
it's
I'm
a
an out
lot.
of towner. I'm
Yeah.
from Scranton, Pennsylvania, no restaurants. So
Yeah.
I
So
get it.
thankfully we have. So we have the luxury of being able to go when we can. Um, but also like the lifestyle is different. My kids, we have some beautiful items for my kids, and some of those happen through collaborations with different children's brands. Very rarely do I purchase, but if I do, it's for, a special event or something my child really wants. But quite frankly, my daughter has too much clothing. But look who's talking. But the truth is I go and I like go through my closet and I pass things on to women in my community. People shop my closet. I have a friend who literally gets all of her clothing from my closet. They get it at a fraction of what the retail is, and some of the stuff still has the tags on because it's part of the work. But quite frankly, do dresses pay my bills? No. Have I
Right.
tried? I'm not going to walk into a coffee bean and get like, oh, here's a headband. Give for my coffee with a headband.
Right.
Can't pay my kids' tuition with dresses or shoes.
It just seems very glamorous on Instagram when people get
It
like
does.
these boxes. I'm like, what do I have to do to get free clothes for my kids? I'm just
You need to
kidding.
not have
But
a
it's
real. You need to not have a regular steady income.
right, right.
That's what you
But
need to do.
but you see, you know what I mean? Like when you see people on
Right.
Instagram like having an unboxing, is that what it's
Right.
called?
Yeah.
And it's just like seems very glamorous. So I guess Instagram does a good job at presenting it like that. That's the
Well,
point.
I think everything's extremely curated when it comes to Instagram. And that's what I'm kind of
Right.
loving now about TikTok, is that everything is whatever. I like made a joke about like the pimple patches I was wearing all day on there. Cause I'm like, you know what? Who cares? And some people are just like, will like DM me like strange things if I do that on Instagram. And I'm just like, I don't have time to answer DMs right now. Like I've been meetings, children, therapy, this, that, like, I don't have time. I'm trying my best, but like, I don't want people to feel neglected. So I'm just like, I'm not even going to do it there.
So
But there
TikTok,
are people
are
who
there
are
no
in fact, wealthy, who became content creators because they have a creative eye and they enjoy it. Some of them do not make much of an income, and I know some that make major money. And it's not only through collaborations, through swipe ups. Geez, some people and their shop styles, if they have a clientele that'll buy dresses, like I know bloggers who make thousands of dollars a month based on their swipe ups alone.
Wow.
I don't do those because my angle is more to support the smaller Jewish women owned businesses. So that completely knocks me out of the park of shop style and things like that. So I have affiliate codes and I have whatever. Do I push as much? I don't. Um, but it's just because it's not me right now. But I also have other streams of income at the moment, but I didn't when I was working with the reps. I told the reps how much I made. It's just like, it's not a lot.
Mm-hmm.
When it comes down to it, like I was giving like free marketing advice in addition to all the content that I was creating for brands.
People would
Uh,
reach out to you on Instagram and be like, "Oh, I love your page. Like, could you help me with XYZ?" And you would just help them, like things like that.
Sometimes, I mean, I'll do that sometimes for like content creators themselves at this point, like other bloggers and things, also because at this point, I run influencer marketing campaigns. So I'm also in touch with a lot of these people, and I'm like, hey, can I give you money? You want to work with us type thing. But I'll say in my case, it really was not adding up. was not adding up. The money was not equivalent to the time and the energy that I was giving to my clients, to the content, to the platform. And I was probably making just as much as I was when I was like a teacher's assistant. Like teacher's assistants don't make money. And then it's like, what? Like true, like once every couple of years, maybe I would get a shaitel from a brand. But also then again, like would I bought the shaitel? I don't know. Like currently I am working on a shaitel, but that's one that I'm like paying for because it's something that I want, you know?
Right.
But it doesn't pay the bills,
right.
you know? And I just felt undervalued. But also I had this idea of money that like it's limited and that I don't deserve it. And that like maybe I'm asking people who don't have the money to pay like for things. And like I see how that's changed because say with like IBA, I had someone message me like, so is the course going to be free? Because if it would, then it would be more accessible. I'm like, that is true. However, I'm not aiming for accessible, being that this took me a year to create.
Right.
And I like passed on a lot of paying clients in order to get this done. Like getting my expertise is not going to be free.
Right.
And I probably would have felt bad. And some people say, do you have scholarships? I'm like, do you have anyone that would be willing to sponsor? Like, I don't have a scholarship fund. Like, I'm not in a position where I could do that. I think we just broke even on the first, on the first thing. And also people don't understand is that we spent a lot of money on the course. Burton and I spent a lot of money on the course, aside from our time, which also is money.
So why did you decide to like show that video publicly? Because you wanted people to understand like the life cycle of a influencer, or because you felt like it was just helpful content?
It was something I like decided to do with Jacob and Julie. I figured it was going to be like a mutual thing. Like I would be learning, and then also potentially they might get, you know, clients from it. But I also didn't mind it. I think it's also important for us to have more open conversations about money. The only reason like I know about saving, investing, you know, emergency savings funds, index funds, all this jazz is because of my husband. And my husband didn't learn it in yeshiva.
Right.
My husband learned it on his own. So there's so many people who are just so unaware of, you know, how to spend their money, how to save their money. You know, when we first got married, my husband's like, is this what my life's going to be like? I was sick in bed. I was depressed. And all I would do was online shop. Money we didn't have.
Right.
You know? And he's like, is this going to be my life? And now, like, we get packages, but they're often, you know, when I'm buying something, it's because I feel like it will better our life, or it's an experience, or it's something that will really give me joy. And there's less impulse buying. I also, you know, honestly, getting my color palette done really, really narrowed things down for me. So for me, that was an investment, because in the long term, I would be spending less and jumping on less final sales and thinking the less is more type of thing, like curating my closet. Like, what do I want? Like, will I wear this multiple times? How will I wear it? And things like that, rather than like, but it's on sale, but it's $15, you know? You know, doing that 20 times is still going to be more expensive than buying the dress at full price that you really want. But you know what? If you can wait for a sale, that's fantastic. You know?
Yeah.
Which I like to do. I'm like, listen, maybe I'll get it end of season. But if I really want it at that point, then if we have the budget for it, or if I have like in my profit account, like that I can spend that, then I'll do that. But that comes with a lot of education. But I also had to realize that I'm worth the money. And I also talk about like my rates and things like that. Like I gave a webinar for IBA, like for potential signups for IBA. I gave a lot of information. We didn't do anything salesy. I'm like, here's a bunch of information. This is what we do. This is what the course is. If you'd like to sign up, you can sign up. And there's a bonus if you do now, but you know, enjoy the information if that's just what you came for. And I said in the course, I'm like, yeah, like honestly, like the course right now is, you know, I think we priced it, the initial thing, at like $8.99, which is less than the value for sure. I'm like, and I charge $500 an hour for my consults, because I get a lot done during my consult. I can plan an entire campaign in one consult, or re-angle your entire business model. I can name your business in 2 consults. Like that's what I've done. But I also just said it. you know, and I had someone in my Instagram be like, how can you charge that? Da, 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 da. And I was like, listen, I understand, like, you're a teacher and like you are grossly underpaid. And in this marketing industry, the value that I bring to people, if I bring them thousands of dollars in return, they're more than happy to provide me with 500. And at the end of the thing, someone messaged me and they were like, okay, so I'm not down to take the course, but like, can I book you for a meeting? It's 500, right?
Right.
A few months ago, a year ago, that would have like shaken me to my core.
So why do you think it was so hard for you to realize that you had value? Like what was your limiting belief around that?
I think I just adopted other people's perspectives around money as my own. And I did what, you know, how like between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, there's a ritual of like going to a body of water and like emptying out your pockets of like your past transgressions. So I did that, you know, figuratively with my ideas about money, going into my pockets saying, this is not mine, this is not my whatever. You know,
Mm-hmm.
God has more than enough to provide. You know, my husband and I are pretty, you know, rigorous in our giving of 10%. We don't actually give 10%, we give 20. It's my husband's whatever that I took upon myself a couple of years after we got married. I mean, honestly, if I did 20% when I was teaching, like, I think I'd owe myself money.
Right.
But it was just something that we believed in. My husband's very passionate about, so I took it upon myself, and I'm like, money's from God, you know, I'm going to do what I can. And when I started this venture of IBA, I like had a one-on-one with God. I'm like, listen, this is the method that I'm trying in order to bring an income to my family. I will do the best that I can, but ultimately that's up to you. And I'm not jumping around believing that it's my work that's going to be bringing in, you know, I don't believe that it's solely on me. I believe that it's a partnership. And I understand that it's not up to me, but I'm letting you know that this is the avenue that I want to go with. It's the social media marketing and consulting and the course where I want to go.
Did
And
that
I think it's helped.
like you have clarity, direction, like you feel like was that like session, or I guess maybe it was more than one session with the reps, like did that give you that confidence and that clarity that like
Well, I
you
mean, it
know
gave me the understanding that I really needed to work on it. Probably a few more
Mhm.
sessions with the reps definitely would have helped. But I think they made me realize the problem. And then, you know, I got further, you know, help in order to kind of enlighten me on, you know, steps to take to kind of like shed those notions. And then realize, okay, like, what do I enjoy doing? Like, or like, I have to vet clients more, because one of the things that really stressed me out is like anytime I've really grossly negotiated my rates, I ended up majorly getting taken advantage of. Um, and that's never ended well. It's
Right.
usually the clients who I give them the price, they pay me in full when before we start, I deliver and they thank me very much. And I also do better work for them because there's
Right.
less stress.
Right.
That's been the best types of clients. Like I have a client that I work with on like influencer management biannually. And by the end of it, she trusts me enough to be like, by the end of it, she's like, okay, how much time did this take you? And like, what is the price? She's like, I trust you that you're going to give me like a fair rate. And like, I know you do good work. So just let me know at the end of it. And she's just like, okay, here you go. And here's like a little Starbucks something, or here's another little thing, you know?
Oh,
So also finding and attracting the right
the ideal
clients to
client.
work with, and having the intuition to also be like, red flag, nope.
Right. Right.
Like you don't have to work for everyone for God to bring you what you need. Like I had someone ask me to do something for them. Like it was kind of urgent and kind of, I'm just like, I'm sorry, I can't help you right now. Like I'm full. Like, but you know, maybe reach out to this person or to that person or this person. They might be able to help you, but not me. Sorry.
So you feel like since you've started and since you've been like working on yourself, you're able to like have those boundaries and like tell people, like even though like some people, of course, people will like ask you to lower your price. But now you know like
Yeah.
the clients who really value your work will pay you what you're worth.
Yeah. Or they'll work with me in some way.
Hmm.
You know, I understand there are new businesses that want to work with me. And if something that I feel passionate about, we work out some sort of unique arrangement, whether that's, you know, working up to a certain amount of, uh, you know, flat rate plus affiliate, or, you know, more product or this or that. I don't take on as many clients for like ads anymore, just because I don't know, I don't enjoy it as much as I do like helping businesses behind the scenes. But the clients that I do take on now, like definitely do respect my rates, do respect what I do, or if they say, I have this budget, what can you do for me? And then if it doesn't work for them and it doesn't work for me, then, no harm, no foul. Right. And that's fine. But I definitely think that my perspectives around my value of my work, I mean, especially when I was collecting testimonials for IBA, it made me feel really good. I'm like, who am I to do this? Like I was getting imposter syndrome. And then I got all this stuff from all of my clients that I've worked with. And I'm like, oh, that's why I can do this.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Like I delivered results, not like I'm just talking or whatever. Like I had someone who's, run marketing for like multi-million-dollar companies. And they're like, he's like, at the drop of a hat, Bari can come up with like a clever campaign. Like I've never seen anyone do that,
Wow, that's awesome.
And I'm like, thanks, man. He was like, I meant it. I'm like, okay, good. Because don't give me a complex that you just lied. Like he's good at writing these things. Like that's what he does for a living, is like upsell people. But I was like, is this real? He's like, yeah, it's real. I'm like, okay.
That's so nice.
And this is what I like to do for now. This is where like I do feel passionate about helping. Like in my head, I was telling my husband, he's like, why do you do what you do? I'm like, it feels good to know that I'm helping another mom pay their kids' tuition.
Right.
Or like pay the grocery bill. That's what I love. And like, thank God we're in a place to like, most of our Meister money goes to take care of my father-in-law. And like, I'm not saying we're at a place where we have so much money and whatever, but like, we're at the point where like, our air conditioner downstairs needs to be replaced and it's hot as anything. And as like we live in Vegas, it's over 100 degrees every day now. And it's just extremely unpleasant. And like, yeah, it's going to hurt, but like, thank God we can do it. We're not in a place where we can just buy whatever we want on a whim. And like, yeah, sometimes I do have that bit of envy when I see that, diamond tennis necklace or, the Hermes flats and all that jazz, but like, that's not where we are.
Right.
And that's okay. And there are times where like I want to get something nice for myself. And if I save up enough, I can. Like I saved up for this wig because I'm like, you know what? I want this to be a symbol of like, I am a boss lady and I want a nice hair piece to like show myself like you earned this, like you did this.
Right. It sounds like your whole relationship with money. You're not just your business money, but like your money with your relationship with money in terms of like using it to bring you the most amount of joy, not just like buying things to buy them, but just to actually like invest in things that really give you joy. It's like your whole relationship with money sort of shifted.
Definitely. And I feel like I went to a breathwork class last night with my husband where you like do different type of breathing to like stimulate different stuff in your brain and your body and whatever. It's supposed to be a trauma release. The first time I did it, like I laughed so hard I was crying. My therapist told me that was a trauma release. Didn't happen as much last night, but it was nice. But I remember that first time I went with a group of friends and we were just sitting there and I was like, this is the best $35 I've spent in a really long time. And they just looked at me. I'm like, you know how much garbage I've bought for $35? I'm like, this is great. This is fantastic. This was a good investment. And there's them laughing at me because I've had to learn like what's worth it.
Right.
Like the impulse buys are just a way for me to cope. And quite honestly, we spend more than enough money on therapy right now. Like that's where most of our
money that's goes, a good investment.
And that's self-care and self-preservation.
Right. Isn't that a good investment though?
Yeah, because the stuff that I've been able to overcome through that help has definitely been worth it, and I just remember at a point we were like really struggling. We spent all of our marriage, our wedding money on my treatment.
Right.
For Lyme, it was like, what honeymoon? We still haven't gone on a honeymoon. We still have to save up to, go on a trip together. My husband and I have not been away on a vacation together probably ever. We've gone away, but like for errands, like let's go to Florida to visit my grandmother, may she rest in peace. But like for us to fly somewhere by ourselves to like a trip, like no.
Right.
We also have a lot of like, where did we get our stroller? Did we get a high end like current stroller? No, we bought one for $150 on OfferUp.
Right.
We most of our furniture over the past few years has been secondhand. Like like it's a different lifestyle, and you also never know based on social media what somebody's financial standing is, because someone can
really
be,
true.
Covered in labels, but also like drowning
in debt. Yeah, that's so
Or
true.
there are the people that are, covered in labels that are doing well. And you know what?
Right,
Good for
right,
them.
right,
God bless them.
right.
And I'm sure that they're doing wonderful, beautiful things with the money that they have. And I hope that it continues for them. And I
Yeah,
hope one day we can get there too.
right.
But if not, like I am really happy with what we have.
Yeah, I guess like a really important takeaway is just like what you see on social media or what you see like if you see somebody lost weight, like it's not just like, oh wow, I'm so jealous of them. Like, no, they're sick. Or like if you see somebody on social media and they're like promoting all this stuff, it doesn't mean that they're like rolling in money. Like it's not always like what
Right.
you see is not always what you get, you know?
There are also people that get paid to do try-ons and things, and then they box everything up and send it back.
That's so interesting.
So you don't know that either. Just because someone
Right,
has all these things, they're doing a try on and maybe they
right,
get to keep one or two pieces from what they tried on and then
right,
they're sending everything back.
right. It just curated. That's just like the nature of the platform.
Yep, 100%.
But life is like that anyways. Like we see people like in this, and I actually just was listening to Shira last night. And Linda Nathan, I don't know if you know her, but she was saying that a lot of times it's the people that like who look the most perfect in the supermarket are the ones who you need to be like, are you okay? Like, how you
Yeah,
doing? You know? And like it's so interesting to hear that because like we put on a good show, like you were saying before about like putting on a good show. But a lot of times it's people are just really good at acting and like everybody, like we just never know.
100%.
Okay, so I'm gonna let you go because you have to go pick up your daughter.
Welcome to
But
my life.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, because it's 5:51 here, but it's 2:51 by you.
Yes.
So I'm gonna go give my kids dinner. But could you just tell everybody where they could find you and your podcast and your new course?
Yeah, absolutely. So to find my general shenanigans and my adorable children and my sometimes appearing husband, you can find me at Bariana. That's Barianna on Instagram. Might be similar on TikTok. I don't know, but who knows? I have like 100 followers on there. It's great. I just do whatever I want. My podcast is called the Woman of Valor podcast. You can find it on your favorite podcast listening app. However, if you want to listen to it on the website, it's the wovlife.com, the woman of valor life.com. So WOV. And for IBA, we are opening up our next cohort in October after, the high holidays so that everyone gets a chance to, get swallowed up by so much. Can we touch our phone or not? And what day is it? And that is at the Bold Edge, iba.theboldedge.com.
Okay. I'll put that in the show notes. I'll put all that in the show notes. Okay. Thank you so much. This was awesome. I really appreciate you coming on.
My
So much
pleasure.
fun.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, sure. Have a good day.
You too.
Bye.